Hey, good evening. Hope you all are having a good Friday. We're back for another installment of Meteorology Lab. And we've got more clear skies. Not much moisture here in this part of Texas. And let's see here. Let's check it out on the GOES-R imagery. And this is from Kochman Vetter. Gave us permission to use the images, and I appreciate that. It's definitely a good source of information, and that's where you go to get that URL printed right there. And this shows that we did have a little bit of an attempt at convective development earlier today. You see that right here in the Guthrie area, about 60 miles east of Lubbock. So right there, you see those towers going up right before sunset. So there was a very small attempt to get convection going, but we're really lacking moisture, and that's evident by the missing low clouds, no stratocube or stratus. We do have mid and high clouds out to the west, so upper dynamics are moving into the area, and this is very cool. You can see gravity waves on the top of these clouds here. And by the very long distance between the shadows, this kind of shows you that these are pretty high up there, about 20 or 25,000. So this is mostly upper air energy, and let me show you the surface chart real quick. So when we look at that cloud pattern way back there coming across the border in this area, we look at the dew points, and we can see that the dew points are in the 50s and 40s, so that's some pretty dry air. Let's take a look at the boundaries here. This is a pretty easy day to work out boundaries. We can run through this very quickly, and we come up with probably something like that right there. You can see there's low and mid 70s north of that with easterly winds, and south of that boundary, southeasterly winds, temperatures a little bit above 80. And on either side, there's just not much moisture. And the highest values that we see are a little bit of mid-50s right there around Frederick, Oklahoma. And down to the south, also pretty dry. The highest that I see in the immediate area is maybe 54 there at Midlothian, south of DFW. Very weak moisture axis, and 55 there at Paris. So this is showing a little bit of the moisture advection from the south, and plus this pooling of moisture along the boundary. That may not be a technically correct word, but it's sometimes referred to that a little bit. Then we go out to the west and see where the boundary leads us. Pretty good convergence right there between Clovis and whatever station that is right there. So back here we're seeing a little bit of post-dry line air. Temperatures back behind the dry line near zero, or dew point temperatures near zero. And the next question is, do we have a cold front out to the west? Well, we see mid-80s here, upper 80s here. Okay, so this is still part of... hear a dog outside. This is part of the continental tropical air mass. And then we hit this boundary right here, and that looks like the transition to cold air. So we go west of that, we get into the 60s and the 50s back here. So this is a very strong demarcation between Pacific air. We can go with the old designations, maritime polar, and post-dry line air, continental tropical. And then, do we have a dry line? I don't know, a very weak dry line maybe in here. And so past that we have our maritime tropical air mass. And then north of that, we've got a little bit of continental polar air. So we got four air masses all ganging up together here in eastern New Mexico and West Texas. Let's take a look at the 500 millibar chart, and I brought up AWIPS. Might as well look at what the Weather Service forecasters are looking at. Okay, there's the current chart. Let me resize that so we can see that a little bit better. And this shows us the trough out in Arizona, a center right there near Flagstaff or Winslow, and a very broad trough from California out to West Texas. And this also shows us that the polar front jet is located in this area right here. So just off the coast of LA and San Diego, just south of Tijuana, south of Nogales, and in the El Paso area. And then it emerges where we see those mid and high clouds coming out of New Mexico, kind of in this area here. So this is the stronger dynamics coming out of New Mexico right there. And just for a little bit of trivia, there's the ridge starting to move out of the area, so we're now getting height falls, upper level cooling, lift, and destabilization of the air mass in Texas. Okay, before I go much further, let me see who we got in chat. Got Mark and Kevin McKinney, Alexi, Greg, Ahmed from Saudi, Fun with Tech, Jason Boggs, Brett Dean, 52 degrees there where Brett is. Greg Schultz, severe reports from the Northeast. I guess we need to check that out. Ryan Tumis is here, Fred Reamer up in North Dakota, Eddie W., David Holcomb, Victor Cab. Yeah, Victor, I need to get Victor's pictures up. Victor sent some photos of the storms that we got earlier in the week, and I've been falling behind on a lot of stuff here, so I'm sorry about that. I'll get to that shortly. Ron Chalfont is here, and wow, 1,000 subscribers. I had no idea. That's definitely great news. Yeah, we'll try to do something interesting. Maybe a little special feature. I'm thinking about maybe doing another flashback on another significant tornado. And I might see if I can put that together over the weekend. Ryan Toomey is talking about Saturday and Sunday forecast severity activity, looking at several discussion models there. Charles Skelly in snowy Vermont. Tree Nelson says raining like crazy in central Wyoming. Dorothy Tornado is here, and okay, very good. So here's our dynamics starting to come into the plains, and the big ingredient that we're missing is the low-level moisture. It just hasn't had time to come back. But we're definitely getting the upper-level lift moving in, and let's watch it come in overnight. We see that trough kind of settling in there in the southern Rockies. And then by the time we do the webcast tomorrow night, we're going to be looking at that right there. So the trough has kind of gone quasi-stationary in New Mexico. So maybe some elevated showers in that region. Stronger flow starting to come out into Texas. So if we advect more of this moisture up, that's going to bring it more into phase with the upper level dynamics. And we should see rain chances going up here. Polar front jet axis is going to be right there. So that'll be some of the stronger storms right along that axis. And then we get into Sunday. Looks like at the very end of that NAM run, we see things starting to shift east. So we see the trough coming out into the Big Bend area on Sunday at midday. So probably one more rainy day over the weekend. So there's our 500 millibar chart, just pretty much what we showed you earlier. And there's the infrared satellite picture. And so we can kind of use this to confirm the location being shown on that model initialization. So we can see these fragments right here. They're kind of drifting north. These are drifting south. And that kind of pinpoints the center of this system right there. And I think we were looking for the Winslow Holbrook area. Yeah, that's pretty close right there, just a little bit north of I-40. So models are looking good, and the main bulk of the upper level lift back here. And we know that the polar front jet is about like that. since I've kind of talked out the position, I'm able to accurately place that from memory without having to go back to the charts. So sometimes it can be helpful to kind of recite where everything is in your head as you go through the chart sequence there. The thickness analysis looking like this. You can see that this boundary here has really shaped up over the past 24 hours. And that's due to the magical effect of convergence with cyclogenesis out in West Texas. And when you have cyclogenesis, you're bringing contrasts even closer together. And so that helps to strengthen boundaries, and we see that coming together right there along the Red River. And then we have the separate boundary coming out of New Mexico and Arizona, located right there. That fits in pretty well with what we saw in the surface data. And behind that, the cold pool is pretty much stacked directly with the upper level low. And we do have a little bit of weather out east. We're going to touch on that briefly. It's kind of difficult when we have a bunch of weather going on across the country, because if I try to cover everything, we can easily run up to 30, 45 minutes. So sometimes as we go through these from day to day, I'm going to kind of miss some of the activity going on in certain places, but I will try to cover that where I can. So we do have this system out here out east. And let's take a look at the SPC severe weather reports. Today's storm reports. There we go. A couple of tornadoes reported there near Norfolk and just across the border in North Carolina. And time on that was 22:16, so that was about 2 or 3 hours ago. So maybe I can bring up a quick GR level 2 for that. So we'll get that started up. And so while that's going, this is how our temperature trends have been looking at DFW. So we are still running above average. These temperatures that we have this week are pretty much about what's normal for May 2nd. Okay, let's see here. Let me bring up the site. We're going to need the Norfolk radar. Let's see. I guess it's going to be Wakefield, actually. I don't think there is a radar at Norfolk, so yeah, we'll get this started up, and that'll take a few minutes for the data to come in. And while we're waiting on that, we will go to we already looked at the dynamics for the next couple of days, so we'll skip that. But we'll take a look at the 850 chart, and we'll see that front coming out of the Rockies here. Okay, so I've parked this on the 850 millibar chart for right now. And you can definitely see an 850 millibar front right there in the Childress-Lubbock area. And back here, we're kind of seeing the Pacific front also coming out of the Four Corners area. Normally, we don't see the dry line too well on this kind of chart, but in this case, it looks like it is showing up. We see a little bit of a gradient in the relative humidity. So I think we've probably got the low-level jet kind of set up along and just west of I-35, and then we've got the dry line at 850, probably through the San Angelo, Ozona, and Del Rio area. Okay, so there's our radar picture out of the Norfolk-Richmond area. And it looks like a severe thunderstorm warning there for Camden, I don't know all those counties, but anyway, there it is, and it looks like they just dropped that. So there it is. We got a little bit of a squall line. It doesn't really look all that severe, just a couple of strong storms in that line. And it's kind of tracking to the southeast right there like that. Okay, moving on along a little bit further, I do want to bring up one interesting chart here, since I was showing you the surface patterns here in Texas. You can see that flow coming together along that boundary here. And when you're trying to forecast initiation, it can be very helpful to use divergence. That's going to be this divergence and vorticity product right here. And this tends to show you where the ingredients are set up the best to break the cap, not taking into account orography and localized variations in cap strength. Not really looking at that, but looking strictly at the flow and where the flow is pushing together. And when you bring the flow together like that, you tend to get convergence and upward motion from that. And so as you can see, this area just south of Childress is showing some pretty strong point convergence right in there. And that corresponds very closely to where we're seeing that storm going up right there. And you also have the additional effect of a little bit of upslope flow here. These two stations are bad, so don't worry about that. But you can see we're getting about 10 to 15 knots right there. And that flow across this area and up on the cap rock, perpendicular to the cap rock, that's some decent lift there. So that's another thing that's helping that little area of storms to form. Unfortunately, you can see that the dew points are on the low side. They're close to 50, so it's probably going to fall apart, just kind of a turkey tower for now. But if we had just a little bit more moisture, we would probably see some chaseable activity out of that. Okay, let's head into the forecast and we'll look at the NAM here. And I'll try to set this so you can see the valid time here at the top. So there's the current chart, and then overnight, a little bit of upper level shower activity back behind the ridging in the colder air. So this is going to be just kind of stratiform precip in Kansas and Colorado. Nothing really convective out in Texas. Looks like the model is breaking out a few showers around the Fort Worth area tomorrow morning. Those are almost certainly going to be elevated. And then we see the front start to sink southward like that tomorrow. So by the time we do the weathercast tomorrow evening, the front will be kind of positioned like that. And I think the Pacific front is going to remain stalled. Probably still going to be way back here around Monahans and the Big Bend area. Possibly a dry line somewhere in this area. So depending on how much moisture we get up in this area, we may have a bit of a triple point set up right there south of Vernon, south of Childress again. And yeah, it looks like that does go up at 03Z, so possibly some chaseable activity, and since that's a Saturday, we'll probably have the hordes out there in full force. Then for Sunday, looks like the system finally pulls out into the Central Texas area. Elevated convection out in Central Texas Sunday morning, and that'll move eastward into the DFW area during the day. So by the time we do the weathercast, scattered storms in the Waco, DFW area, then some more elevated stuff north of the front. Okay, then looking at the GFS for the rest of the picture. Okay, Sunday going into Monday, you see the system pull out, and it looks like we get a decent squall line overnight in Louisiana and Arkansas. So we'll watch for the possibility of severe weather then. That'll move into Alabama and Georgia on Monday, So by Monday night, when we do the webcast, Alabama and Georgia there, maybe some activity in Atlanta. Still got a bit of a front out in this area here. And we see that start to come together Tuesday right there. So probably we'll see some rain chances going up once again. Cyclone emerging out into Oklahoma. Some storms going up just south of that apparently. So we're getting into Wednesday. And most of this appears to be going north into Missouri and Iowa. And GFS is saying we're going to get downslope flow. So cold front pushes through very quickly on Wednesday, and things shut down for Texas. And so probably a few storms along with that, pretty well south on Thursday. Another occlusion in the Great Lakes area, lots of cold air advection. And then for Texas and the central U.S., looks pretty quiet over the weekend. And the next chance of activity coming up for the 10th and 11th, big cold front sinking southwestward or southeastward. Blasts quickly through Texas. And looks like we're talking about the 14th and the 15th towards that weekend. So 2 weeks from now, that'll probably be the next big chance of showers and storms for Texas. See, we're starting to get this southerly flow coming up from the Gulf then. And that'll move eastward. Another good front, so I think we're going to see the temperatures start to return to seasonal normals around midweek or mid-month. Okay. So I think that probably completes our forecast there. And one more check of the chat. Ryan says he's promoted the page heavily. I definitely appreciate that. Having more viewers on here is definitely motivational. Keeps me coming back to this every evening. Brett Dean getting close to his house. I've lost my place. Hang on a second. Sarah Wood is here. Light drizzle and 40 degrees in northern Indiana. 77 at Canyon Lake, where Ancient Astronaut is. Ron Chalfant mentioning my books. I appreciate that also. And David says, Couchman Vetter is awesome, and I agree. I've been looking at those satellite pictures quite a bit. And, all right, can we expect anything serious in Ohio? Just a quick response to that question about Ohio. Probably not. It looks like most of the moisture heading northward is being eaten up by the squall line. That's kind of reducing a lot of the advection, making it north into the Ohio area. Then I think we have this other chance coming up. Again, most of the moisture gets eaten up by this MCS here on the 6th of April. And a little bit drier as you go to the north there. So we don't get the really deep moisture return until the 7th. And that'll be as it moves out into the East Coast area right there. So you probably got maybe a couple more weeks until you get another round of severe weather in Ohio. Anyway, that's about all I got for tonight. I appreciate you all watching. And we will see you tomorrow on Saturday. Thanks.